Phil. Welcome back to not Mental Health Monday because it's not Monday, but we could call it maybe Therapy Thursday. I felt like if I hit the record button, they would have given people a live, like a introspective look into what therapy sessions with me look like. So I'm glad that we didn't do that yet, but maybe that'll be something in the future.
Therapy with Matt?
Yeah, yeah, like when you therapize me in my crazy brain. How are you doing, man? It's been a long time.
I'm good. So wait, did you press record when we were hanging out a minute ago or not?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are sometimes the best because, I love it when you just forget.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm totally ready to air into the Emergence universe my how I'm dealing mentally with the quarantine and pandemic in our world. But I do have some, we were trying to figure out what to talk about, and I have something that I feel like has just kind of been on my heart lately, which is this like overwhelming sense that no matter where we look, whether it's mainstream media or it's social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff, this sense that people are constantly trying to force us to pick a side, right? Whether it's about the pandemic, about face masks, about lockdown, about social justice, whatever it is, politics, you have to pick a side. And when you pick that side, you have to immediately start vilifying the other side. And I just feel like, while this is nothing new on the internet, I almost wonder if it's super heightened because we're all just at home basically on the internet all the time now. And I was curious, like, to talk to you because you're a mental health professional, what you kind of thought about, like, what this does to the brain, what this does to the human psyche, and then ultimately maybe just to get your pastoral opinion and maybe share a little bit of my own about what it looks like to be Christians in this environment of the internet's a cool place. There's a lot of fun stuff to do and distract yourself and get an amazing amount of information to communicate, but it's also like a very dark place sometimes, that it seems like there's just stuff that goes on that loves to feed on, kind of animosity and anger and all those things. So with having said all that word salad, what do you think? Is that something we can talk about today, you think?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm down. You want to pray first?
Yeah, I would love to pray. You want to kick us off?
Sure. Lord, we just want to remain humble before you today, and Lord, and come to you with these topics, especially even talking about conversations that can feel dividing, or it's just so easy to maybe to take offense or to pick a side, or to distance yourself from somebody because of their opinion, or where it causes so much potential division. Lord, we seek your face on this, and ask that you would, Lord, that you would protect Matt and myself, even, Lord. Lord, we want to honor you with how we talk about these things, and we want to be safe ourselves, that we could be honest and transparent, but respectful, and treat anybody who might have different opinions with dignity. Lord, you know how to handle this perfectly, and you know how to bring unity, and you are bringing all things to a place of unity, and that's what our hope is in you and in what you're going to do. And so, Lord, would you use this conversation, and would you lead us in it? Bring the right words and the right content, even as Matt and I get the opportunity to discuss, and others who are walking with us get to discuss too. Lord, that we could even see your kingdom come, especially in areas where we would imagine that Satan would love to have a field day with whatever stirs up division and conflict and more of hatred or fleshly stuff. Lord, so would you use this even to further your kingdom, to create more peace, and less division. We lift this up in the name of Jesus Christ.
Amen. Oh, thanks, Phil, for getting us kicked off there. So I'm not totally sure where to start. I guess I wonder if I can just ask you a few like quick questions, and then maybe we can kind of build from there.
Yeah, let's do it. I do have a thought about where to start, but go
Oh,
there.
go. But tell me first, and then maybe that's a better idea.
I was just thinking, like, as you were talking, it might be an interesting exercise to even just try to name. We've mentioned like polarizing conversations, like to just list off the ones that come to mind for
Mm-hmm.
you. What are some that I know, like whether or not we should wear face masks?
Sure. I
Like
think face mask is big. I think a lot of people are arguing right now over whether we should be locked down at all.
yeah,
I think obviously, kind of in a 4-year cycle, people are arguing whether you should be a Democrat or a Republican, as if there's no other options and there's no in betweens. Um, those are like the big ones I think that are kind of vaccines. We could talk. That's a pretty good one that gets people fired up too, where I see a lot of people yelling at each other. Um,
vaccines,
so
and that seems to have a relation to like the whether or not there's like agendas with COVID and
sure,
stuff,
yeah.
right?
It this whole thing like kind of came onto my heart because I had two friends, a real friend and then an internet friend. Both had posted like similar things, which was my one friend Hank said, I'm blocking all these people XYZ that had these like certain beliefs." And then my friend Mike had said, "If you're not
In a
if
name,
you if you're not wearing a mask, these one of them's from Minnesota, the other one's from Jacksonville, so it doesn't matter. No one knows anyone. Uh, I'm not name dropping, um, but he said like if you're the kind of person that doesn't wear face masks, I want you to unfollow me. So one of them was like I'm blocking everyone, the other one was like I want you to unfollow me, and I kind of had reached out to both of them, and just I had this weird thing like this notion in my head that said, if we're constantly narrowing down our scope of who we're talking to based on whether they agree with us or disagree with us, eventually you can extrapolate that out far enough to it's only going to be you in a room by yourself because you're going to disagree with everyone, at some point on something like, and I understand that these are like a few big key tenets for people, but it just made me feel like there is something going on right now in our world and our culture that wants us to be divided, that wants to conquer community, that wants to conquer togetherness, that wants to conquer people having conversations and disagreeing, but peacefully, or at least listening to each other. And that's where this whole thing came
there's
about.
like a
So
spiritual war going on or something.
you could say that. I think that it's very obvious to if you're looking for it, it's very obvious that the things that God wants us to be doing, right? Um, Taking care of people that are different than us, taking care of our neighbors, our friends, all that stuff, and being closer and talking more and being, slow to speak and quick to listen and all those things get usurped pretty quickly on the internet. So that's where I wanted to kind of go. And the way I was just like realizing that it really does tie into mental health is if I end up in my kind of cycle of doom scroll, like if I am not doing the things I should be doing. You love that, don't you? I mean, it happens sometimes, right? Like, like you've already, kind of done your chores for the day or whatever, and you're just kind of like zoning out and you're like, and like, if it's, post after post after post of just like kind of angry people who are fighting and arguing and all this stuff, like I feel more anxiety in my life. And I was like, is that real, for most people, Phil? Or is that like, am I strange and like I'm just picking up on vibes?
No, I mean, no, I number one, I mean, yeah, like moving past even like the illusion of like screen time as a refresher. I mean, into what
Yeah.
you're talking about, sure, it's like, and it's weird because sometimes it's the things that stir you up the most that you can't look away from, where you're like, okay,
Yeah.
what are they talking about with that? And like, did they really just say that? You know, uh, and it's only long enough before you're kind of like, somebody's got to answer this person.
Yeah.
Like, uh, but then, yeah, it's like watching, you ever try to watch a like really suspenseful movie before going to bed, you
Oh,
know?
it's the worst.
You're right. Like you're like on the edge of your seat, like, like tense, Uh, and I think the things that, it's the conversations or the relationships, I'd say, that we have most, that can have the ability to have most impact on our life, that we find ourselves having the most difficult time being lovingly accepting, of, even if we disagree.
Mm,
Um, so, like, for instance, if you disagreed with me, like, so relationship as an example, uh, you disagreed with me about, how to use finances, you know, you have no impact on my financial life, Matt. So, like, so I'd be like, if I really disagreed with you, I'd be like, wow, like, I think I'd be more conservative with my money, like, and yeah, I mean, I don't know that I just because it's a sale or whatever it is, like, go after that, or like if you're telling you whatever, if you were the less conservative one in the
yeah,
conversation.
no, I see what you're saying, which is probably likely.
uh, I don't know, but anyway, uh, but if I'm talking to my wife, uh, about her philosophy on using money, and she lands on the less conservative type, well, in my head I'm like, well, this isn't just a philosophy, this is our money, you know
Right.
and so,
Directly impacts you.
right, so it's, I'm gonna be much more tempted, of course, in that moment, to feel like I need to say something to convince you, or to, persuade you, in terms of what you'll actually do with your money, because I'm threatened. I feel threatened, right, in some way, shape, or form, because it has an impact on me. Where, let's say, if my relationship is with who gets elected, or whatever control they might have, in my life, and you're a voter, or you have influence and influence other voters, or I think that this is being public and it's going to influence people watching, and that could affect somehow, a bill that gets passed, or somebody that gets elected, you know, um, then in somewhat of a similar way, I'm thinking this really matters and could affect my kids. What you guys decide on vaccines, or what you guys decide on, on what to do with revamping, you know, for police officers and what they get paid and how that gets structured, or what, has this big effect on my life. And so I hear you saying that, and it's like you landing in that position is threatening to me,
Hmm.
because it's not just an opinion. It's like, the more that opinion catches on, you know, the more potential it is that people in power, you know, make their decisions in light of that having more influence. And then it leaves me in a place where I really don't want to go. I don't want it to land there, or I don't want that guy to be in,
Sure.
right?
I
So,
guess what I find, I mean, what's hard for me to process is like this is. Let's talk about political stuff, right? Like, these conversations have been going on for many, many, many years, and they've had this generally the same impact as they always have in terms of who gets taxed and who benefits from which parties in office and all this stuff. But it never has seemed as contentious as it does now. And granted, my life experience has not, somebody who's, twice my senior might say differently, um, because they've lived a lot more life. But in terms of what I've experienced, um, it just has never seemed as polarizing. So I'm just curious as to why we all of a sudden feel like these things impact us so much more.
what do you
Um,
think? Where do you see that shift, Matt? I'm curious.
I don't know. I mean, I think for me, it's just like I'm curious about the psych.
Vibe wise, I think I feel so,
Yeah.
like, there's this part of me that just wants to be like, yeah, I think I sense that too, but I'm just trying to get a sense as to whether you see anything else.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to understand more than like like have opinions about is like the psychology of the internet, like because it seems like we have created a system where we can communicate so well, where we're so hyper connected, yet we've somehow sucked the humanity out of it. So it's like when I'm typing, whether I'm like an internet troll or I'm just like a normal guy trying to share my opinion, do I can I actually process that I'm talking to another person? Like, is that possible to like type into, do we possess this empathy in our brains to be able to like look at a paragraph somebody's written on the internet and then respond to it and actually have the same reservations, like that same kind of like brake pedal in our brain as we would if we were sitting across the table from them having coffee?
Yeah, because you imagine instead of every time you posted something on Facebook, you were getting up on a microphone in front of everybody you were talking to.
I
Imagine,
would just be shouting that I'm making pizza.
like every time you gave that strong opinion or the way that you just communicated that opinion, what you just said about people who differ from you, like, because yeah, a lot of times it's like you read the stuff, and I find that like even at times, no names or anything like that, but like even at times, somebody that I don't think I could ever envision saying that, you
yeah.
know, like has written something. I'm like, wow, because I can't help but feel it as if it was coming out of their mouth,
Hmm.
and I'm like, wow, like would they have that much gall or like that much, to do that if like we were all just like sitting here being like, what do you think? Like would
Yeah.
they go there? And I mean, that person probably would, but I don't know about that one. Like you know.
Yeah.
So
So
to
like,
answer, I
oh,
bet
yeah, go ahead.
like meaning like of course without maybe there's some people who've done research based like some you know right, like in terms of abstract thinking, empathy. I think we're talking in general about compassion, about
Hmm.
empathy, about trying to like there whenever there's an issue. Actually, one of the guys in my undergraduate, he was actually one of the teachers on homiletics or preaching when I was in my undergrad, and I remember, but he was just a very pastoral dude, and I remember just gave this very simple chart. What are those L graphs or whatever, like on conflict. Uh,
Okay.
you
Like
know,
as this increases, that like that kind of a thing, or
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. There's four boxes, kind of goes right. So going up, I don't think it matters which one is which, but going up, you might have the relationship, and going
Hmm.
across, you'd have the issue.
Oh, okay.
You could swap them, whatever. And then four boxes, and I think uh, you know at the relation if you care about the relationship but not the issue, you have acquiesce, right? If you care about the issue but you're not considering the relationship, you have anger. uh,
Hmm.
you have if you don't care about either, you've got apathy, right? And then if and then if he'd say like if you're caring about both the issue and the relationship, we've got action or productive, like assertiveness.
Oh, interesting.
Um, all A words. We love that in Emergence,
Nice. Yes. We do.
right?
um,
But
Yeah, that's an interesting thought to think about how it's not just like, because then, and maybe that's part of like what happens, more on the internet than necessarily in real life, is the chances of you interacting with someone who you don't have any relational investment with is significantly higher than, say, if you're at your office or you're at your home. So I could see how if you care about an issue and then you see a stranger saying the complete opposite of what you believe, you're much more likely to start, throwing fire than you are to be like, "Hey, friend, let's talk about this. Let me hear your
right,
opinion."
like that guy is very unlikely going to be somebody you have to show up and see at work every
Right.
day, right? Who might have expressed an opinion, or an extended family member that you just have to, they're going to be there for as long as they're alive, you
Mm-hmm.
know, uh,
Yeah.
you know, or it's like, or a friend that you care about that they're there because or maybe it's a parent of a kid that goes to school with your kid, or but now this person, you just have to close your laptop and not open that page anymore, and you will never see or hear from them likely again. You know, uh, but or it's at least less because maybe you're on one of these mom sites, or or Hawthorne, or town pages. We're in Hawthorne, so whatever town page where it's like
Man, I love those Facebook town pages. They're
yeah,
the best.
yeah,
Yeah.
why?
I just love like hopping on mine and being like, what's going on? Like this person's getting rid of a free kitty litter bin, and this person needs like a hot water heater recommendation, and like there's something about it I just love.
Yeah. Wait, is that you hear that? Hold on.
No, that's you.
Uh,
Someone wants to get in on this call with us.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just being a goofball. I really do like those. I've always loved them. Even when I was a kid, like we had this little town newspaper that was on the lake we lived on. They would send it out, and I would just be like, "Oh man, Bill Bailey's selling a sailboat. Cool."
They are
And,
pretty cool. In fact, when our car got stolen, the only reason we got it back was because somebody on the Hawthorne page that saw my wife's post
yeah.
worked for the police department in Patterson and had seen our car on the post, and he saw it. He saw it in Patterson, the cop,
Oh
and
man.
and texted my wife because she or Facebook messaged her from the Hawthorne page, like to let her know, like, hey, like I've been looking, like you wanted me to. We found
Yeah.
the car, so it's
So
like,
so
oh,
what you're saying is Facebook town pages have actually redeemed the internet.
yeah. No, but
um,
like if the closest association I have is I might bump into you because you are one of the thousands of people that live in my town. That is way different than bumping. Like I will likely, my younger boys are wild, and unfortunately, there's been a lot of times, in school we're like, whatever, like they kicked somebody or said something crazy or whatever it is, and it's like you have to see that parent.
yeah.
Probably next week as you bump into them in the parking lot, it's kind of like the walk of shame. Where you're kind of like, I'm sorry for what happened. I
Yeah.
can, or I don't know. Like, but it's not as much accountability there. I think that's part of it, right?
Yeah. It seems like a bit of a wild, wild west.
What does the
the
internet?
the internet in general, yeah. Just when you think about that, like low accountability, um, and I guess when we start talking about like mental health stuff, I feel like I'm not out of bounds by saying high consequence, um, because I think people what they say when you take it in, and correct me if I'm wrong from a professional standpoint, but let's say you're getting attacked on the internet. I think that's maybe it's not as harmful as someone shouting those things in your face or demeaning you, personally. But I do think that there's a way that kind of weighs on you and weighs on your heart and your mental well-being.
Yeah,
Um, and that's what it kind of, I'm not going like full like fundamentalist, like unplugging the back of my computer. Obviously, we're having this talk, and I'm trying to put some good stuff out there, but I do feel like there's a bit of like a disparaging kind of feeling, just by a lot of this stuff.
no, I think it's a hotbed for triggers. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that far a stretch if like, you know, you growing up or whatever, you got talked over and kind of you didn't have maybe you one of those people that like I don't know, you weren't the most popular, the socially influential person, and at times the humiliation of somebody like putting you in your place publicly or like saying something and like being like, okay, geez, what do I do with that? Or, and being on the internet and somebody basically mocking you, or telling you you're crazy or an idiot, for thinking this way and maybe you said something, maybe it's because you said something kind of harsh and it was insensitive. Okay. But maybe it's just because you're just, dialoguing and saying your opinion and it's like, whoa, yeah, like bringing back stuff, maybe feeling insignificant or less than, or like something that could, trigger feeling kind of bullied by it or, where yeah, like it still is like potentially it might feel humiliating or feel embarrassing or feel just confrontational or like whereas like man I'm tired of people treating me like that or
Yeah.
or just feeling like hey, like I have a voice too, like it's not invalid and feeling like I have to fight for it. I think it's all sorts of triggers, the same triggers that come up, it's just right, that are coming up there. And like I think you said, the importance of like whether or not I know how the brain, whether to what extent people can or what's stopping them from empathizing about the other side. Uh, Gosh, it's like yeah, the importance of that valuing of the person and the impact you're going to make, you know, and, you know, and also, yeah, being able to be honest about how you feel about the issue. You know, there's a whole theory actually, or a view that comes from one of my favorite theories, Bowen's family system. I think I got the name right. I know Bowen is right, but Bowen family systems therapy, and talks about something. One of the main central kind of ideas of that therapy, or or interventions or goals, would be to be differentiated. Is differentiation is the term, in at least clinically, and it's one of my favorite concepts, man. I love it. It's as a kind of a picture of what health in that viewpoint can look like, and it's the in in that paradigm, or in that view, you'd say, okay, in relationship with other people, oftentimes I might feel like, if somebody's like a powerful personality, you know, um, you know, or if I could be the less powerful one or the more powerful one in that kind of interaction, right? In terms of,
Okay.
and so, and that the power isn't the main point. The main point is that differentiation is the ability, one way of describing it, the ability to hold my form. I don't know why I think of it as if I'm like a crayon, like, and I could melt. Okay. So like, when I'm in the presence of somebody who has a strong opinion, has some social influence, for example, or like maybe it's just your parent, or maybe it's a boss, or maybe they actually have more power too, or maybe it's somebody socially that you don't want them to not like you, or whatever it is. The ability to hold my form, meaning, okay, you just said something and you're kind of saying it as if it's the only reality, you know, and I don't feel that way, and I have other opinions, and or questions or thoughts, um, or I disagree entirely, you know, and the ability to, now we don't have to go and tell everybody what we think every time we disagree, but at times, do I have the ability, when it's necessary or even right, to hold my form and not conform, because what I can do is I can either hold my form and be honest about where I stand, and can I do that and still remain connected with you, or do I, or is, if I can't do that, do I either feel like I melt and I need to agree with you, or at least just not speak up about how I do feel in order to not have conflict, or do I need to leave? Meaning, or do I need to, yeah, I disagree, but I don't know how to do that and hold connection. I don't know how to do that without feeling like we're at odds now, and kind of, or need to leave, or like cut off from relationship. Oh, that's how you think about that? Sorry, blocked. Like, you're,
Right.
so differentiation is the ability to hold my form with somebody I disagree with, while being able to stay emotionally connected, uh, with that person, and that might mean that they might not be able to do that, but I might want that and be able to have that. And they might be like, dude, I don't know how to sit here with you, and that's how you think about this, and that's what your viewpoint on abortion, or on homosexuality, or on, name a topic, right? Divorce, or
Sure.
whatever. Like, how could you, kind of thing. And it's like, I'm just trying to work this out myself. I'm being honest about my view on this. I'm not trying to hurt you, but do you want me to be dishonest? What do you want me to do? Right? You think about the gosh, I've heard this, before. One of the hot topics clearly is after George Floyd, and protests,
Sure.
and the idea of white privilege, injustice, or equality. What's you know, or even like, what I think, what I feel and think about that, and or how I feel and think about, what's happening in terms of reassessing police, and that, and can I be thoughtful about both, and care about both, it's so polarizing. Or am I somehow dissing, if I really believe that every single Black life matters, even if I don't know about everything the organization Black Lives Matter does, can I love people and want, for the sake of the gospel, and with all my heart, equality, and also care about, you know my brother, who's a police officer, who doesn't understand what's happening fully, but feels a lot of intense feelings towards him just by the uniform he wears.
Sure.
You know, uh, you, and whatever also feels like defensive, like I'm not racist or I'm not, whatever it is, can I care about both and love both people, and or can I feel like maybe there's uh, can I feel like there's a sure, like the way that our system of law enforcement has developed has had the roots of inequality, you know, involved in it, and be skeptical of that and question that, and also, uh, like, and also think, love my, I don't know, like, also before, like, wait, well, I don't know what's happening uh, with my friend's paycheck, but he's just got cut entirely, and he's a good guy who I think went into it for the right reasons. Like, can I both want equality and want checks and balances, and also feel like, wait, are they going about this the right way? I don't know if they are. You
Hmm.
know, I don't know, but can I even be honest about that? Because I think when we get into topics like that one, that's just, I think, a big one, where I don't know if I'm offending somebody or going to give somebody the wrong impression that I stand in a way that they can't be my friend anymore. If I'm just thinking about this or having an opinion about that, or don't understand what could come off as racist or not, or or whatever. Like, um, oh, another call's coming. Hold on.
Um, yeah, I mean, the interesting thing to me about that is that in between, right? It seems to me like, and maybe this isn't really about the internet at all.
That
Maybe it's
makes sense, by the way, what I was
it,
saying.
it did, but I think it almost makes me want to ask more questions because like, and that's what we're here for anyways, right? Because you're smart and I have questions. So, um, like what happens to your brain when I think like a layperson would just call it tension, right? Like you have two opposing thoughts and you can almost see the merit. I don't want to say the merits, but maybe you can see the possibility of either of them being right. Like what happens to you when you do see both sides and then you have to sit there and kind of like weigh it, and it almost feels like there's like a timer and it's like, well, you got to pick one, like, do we have to? And why does our brain struggle with that so much? Like why does that cause like anxiety? Why does that cause certain people's heart rates to go up, or it'd be like, or their palms to sweat, or like to for them to be like, why do I have to pick? Obviously there's cut clear um, things that, yes, like if someone's humanity is being challenged or questioned, or like their human rights are taken away from them, there's obviously a very clear line where it's like, hey, you're on the side, you want to be on the side that protects all humans, like protects all human lives and values them. um, I think I like to go into it thinking that. But when it comes to let's obviously say, systemic racism is bad. But you're talking generally about like defunding the police, and it's something that I still need to do more work on learning, like what that
Yeah,
actually means.
I,
But
I don't even have enough information about the topic.
yeah, I don't either. Just to be clear for everyone listening at home, like we're not specifically talking about
Yeah,
that,
really
but
don't.
it's a good example to be like, well, hey, if I listen to one side tell their story and tell their side, I could see how that yes, like if you look at the bullet points, like does it make more sense to have more mental health professionals to deal with calls of distress than to send maybe an untrained policeman there? Sure, but then like overnight, are we all of a sudden saying like, well, we're going to have half as many policemen to deal with other calls that aren't that? I don't know, but I can see both sides, pros and cons of everything. And I'm sitting here going like, but I feel like if I don't pick the right side, I'm offending certain friends. And if I pick the other side, I'm offending other friends. And that's what I feel like. Um, you just get into this kind of whirlwind with all top. Like, I guess my point is, it feels like right now with all topics on the internet, it feels like that. Like you're basically going to offend someone and have to deal with kind of the fallout consequence of that.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm just wondering how much that's weighing on people. Like, is that normal for people to have to deal with day in and day out? And what is the mental health ramification of it?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, we'd say it's normal. It's just like you said, it is probably very intensified, you know. But yeah, like this idea of like even the definition in my mind of enmeshment would be sameness equals closeness. Uh,
What was that word? Enmeshment?
yeah, enmeshment would be another. It might be a. I'm sure there's a normal definition for it, but clinically, think of it, as a negative. It's a kind of dysfunctional aspect. It's like I can't, if we're close as long as we think the same about this.
Oh, I
Uh,
see.
and so, and if you think differently, then you're really you're deviating from what it means to be a part of this
Hmm,
relationship. Like
I see.
versus like distance. You don't want enmeshment where it's almost like we're so close that I need to function the way that you want me to, and if I don't, I'm violating. And we need so much sameness, and we think the same, and we do the same, we're so the same. Like versus like this, right, where we're barely connected.
Yeah.
It's like over connection, connect and under connection. Uh, but just the ability to, and I think, man, this comes up. It's a battle. I feel like so in family therapy, this comes up a ton with that, and so it is. The idea of this is so common. When I said differentiation before, like because there's so much of this reality of like if I think this way, or if I take that viewpoint, or if I, you know, uh, choose that lifestyle, or don't believe this, or do believe that, or like there's social consequence, to that, or I think that if I think this, everybody does. It's like, we get evangelical about a ton of other things than Jesus, like people, like are evangelizing the world into the things that they think matter the most, whatever that is. Uh,
Right.
Yeah, I think it's a very common thing, but in family therapy, I feel uh, uh, it's a corner we need to turn, or in order to be productive and make progress as a family. If we go that route from like individual therapy to like family therapy, and that's so uh, so the ability, it's interesting, right? So let's say it goes this way. Sometimes I come in as a family, sometimes I see an individual, and then we work through enough stuff where they're like, I think I'm ready to bring other family members in, right? And let's just go that route for now. So one of the challenges, of course, with that, if I'm seeing somebody first before the whole family comes in, is I built a lot of relationships, spent a lot of time, and so by nature, it will feel imbalanced to the other family members coming
Sure.
in because it's
You're like that person's advocate.
yeah, like I'm in alignment or have a coalition, kind of like I already know his point of view, and I see through that point of view, and I'm behind it. So let's talk. Uh, is kind of in a I have to preemptively debunk that assumption, as I'm meeting the
Huh.
family and work to bring balance into that. Everybody knows in that, anybody who's in the room, whether I have just the one family member, or if we're bringing more in, the more people, the more complexity. Uh, you know, that everybody in the room, one of the rules of this culture is that everybody gets an equally valid perspective, voice, and voice, and that it's going to be heard with equal value. And so that's often something people have a hard time with, and especially if you add the dynamic of power, like it's an adolescent and parents, but the
Sure.
rule
Yeah. Yeah.
same. Like, because right now it's not about what rule you go home and implement as parents. It's about everybody feeling heard and understood, even if their perception is very different and you disagree with it entirely. It's going to be heard. If you're letting me facilitate this conversation, then that's what that's kind of the rules here. So
I guess where I get confused, and it has a lot to do with like conversation on the internet, is can you feel understood if you're completely disagreed with?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, yeah. I think you can. I think it's yeah. Um, like very possible. I think so. So oftentimes, let's say it's you know, I don't know, some kid. I don't want to give an example. I guess maybe smoking weed and the parents who think that's ridiculous and illegal and whatever. I don't know if that's a good example. Maybe whatever.
Well, it is
Like
illegal.
it is totally illegal. That's a fact. right? But I don't know, but that situation might be one where, not, like the parents now are going to be able to go home and implement whatever rules they end up wanting to implement, right? They still have kind of that power control, but uh, and let's say it's a co-parenting situation. The parents divorced, and they're less available for that kid, and it's not all just like he's just this little pothead, not wise, but maybe he's covering up some pain and he doesn't know how to deal and he's got nobody to talk to or whatever, right? And I'm not saying that justifies anything, but he
Right.
has a perspective. He has a perspective, and if
Okay.
he feels safe enough to express it, even if the parents feel, I don't care what your perspective is, it's wrong. It's wrong. Whether they're saying factually it's illegal or it's just wrong in our house, we're not going to say yes to it, right? Meaning, and which is fine. It's their rule to make. But can I do that and also hear this kid's heart? And also hear, well, where are you coming from, and why is it, why are you digging your heels in so hard? And maybe it is about like just because whatever, I might agree with you on that, but I want to do what I want to do, and it's whatever, and or maybe I am kind of bored, or maybe I just don't understand myself well enough, whatever, but you know but to hear, or if you and I disagree entirely about, like, I don't know, man, like if you and I disagreed about whatever, whether or not my office at Emergence should be demolished,
Yeah. This is
and
hard. This is hard for you and I to have this because we generally agree on most things. So it's like this is very abstract for
well,
us to like come.
you think so? I
I
think,
mean, I think maybe not. Maybe we'll disagree about this now.
see, I think you and I, for example, we've yeah, like we see things differently, very differently, right? At times,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And, um, I think what we built a lot of trust, and I think that's kind of the lubricant to the gears,
Hmm.
because we both know, I care very much about you, and I feel that you respect and care about me very much, um, and so at times, like maybe it's not even we realize we agree more than we thought we did, but like you're looking at it one way, and then I might like come in and kind of be like, can I ask about that, or can I like,
Yeah.
you know your approach on that, and because there's an openness, and you know that I actually want to understand, I'm not going to come guns blazing kind of like with my mind already made up. I'm seeking to understand, well, how do you see that, and so um and I think, you know you might tell me what you're thinking, and because you hear me say, okay, I come to a place of understanding, it's easier for you to then hear my perspective. Now that's actually super important to like a process. So like if you're sitting down, and if anybody wants to, you can look up something called the Rappaport method. It's a really cool.
I
It's like,
have so many good tabs to
yeah,
read after we're done with this. I
yeah,
have the
it's a
Bowen
really
and
good upgrade from active listening, um, or reflective listening. It's like
the
it's
Rappaport method.
yeah, I think it's PPOP, Rappaport ORT or something like that.
Yeah, oh, the Rappaport rule.
Method. If you can get an article Gottman's have come up with a method for it, but it does. There's some history behind it, of this I think it was either a Guy Rappaport or
Yeah,
Rappaport method was
Anatole.
during the Cold War, when we were trying to not nuke each other in like Russia, and we're coming up with ways to talk without firing weapons. Uh, so that's when it was like clearly they disagreed. But how do we have this conversation and not fire nuclear missiles at each other? Right. That's the premise kind of for this method.
That seems like much higher stakes than
Yeah,
yelling at people on the internet.
it's a good metaphor of people like, we're constantly firing off missiles, and it's just like,
Yeah.
can we not, and try to get through this without killing everybody, like without like,
Yeah, this is good. This is good stuff. Rules for the speaker: no blaming, criticism, or contempt. No you statements. We talked about that a number of episodes ago. Only use I statements about a specific situation. Talk about your feelings. State a positive need using a gentle startup. Within every complaint, there is a longing. When that longing is expressed, a recipe for how to fulfill it may emerge. I don't fully understand that part, but
Yeah, so if you can complain about something, you can state a desire. So you can always flip a complaint on its head. So like if I say to you, Matt,
oh, okay.
talk to
Instead
me.
of saying, "Oh man, the dishes aren't done," you could say, "I really would have been nice if I came home from work and the dishes had been done."
Exactly, yeah. You can always think of a flip.
That sounds like passive aggressive to me, but I'll go with it.
Well, yeah, if you're being a jerk about it, is like I mean, like if you're coming at it like sarcastically or whatever. But I mean, if you're trying to be sincere and knowing that it's much more just like hearing an I statement and somebody saying a subjective opinion with I statements is just a lot easier to hear than well you and pointing a finger anything. It's just I've already gotten a little defensive because you just
Yeah,
point whatever
sure, sure.
um, um and what was I saying brain fart. What were we just saying?
We're talking about complaining, turning it
Oh
into a
yeah, yeah.
passive aggressive.
Yeah, it's not passive aggressive, right? So yeah, it's just if when I hear, hey, here's an opportunity that like here's something that you would have liked that I can do, as opposed to here's where you suck. It just feels better,
Yeah, sure.
you know. It's like, hey, it's like here's how like that would have been really nice. I'm not sitting here being like, man, that sucked. You just do that. You just
Hmm.
do that. And like now that's better than a criticism. I think that's the three levels right there. Is I can criticize you, I can complain, which is a little bit better, you know, or I can state a need. Sometimes you can't get around stating a desire or a need without labeling the thing that's bad.
Sure.
Sometimes you got to do it, right?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, those are all things I statements. Different ways that how there are safer ways and ways that I can state an opinion, state my place on things that doesn't label it as a black and white issue. Whenever um, you're like you're talking about something, let's say I feel like this is one of those things as a like when I've led small groups or groups before. It's one of those things that you end up having as a shepherd to intervene on a bit when somebody starts to state let's say it's a position about the Bible or an open-handed area of Scripture, and they start to say, well, really, what the Scriptures say and what they mean is this and this and this, and then subtly, everybody in the room is feeling like, I mean, I see it kind of different, I see it
Right.
a little bit, but the way that it's said, I can't tell you that I can't give my opinion without it feeling like a challenge right now.
Hmm.
Because you've said it as a black or white. This is how it is, and this is how we all need to see it. And um, as opposed to saying, hey, the way that I'm interpreting this, and how I'm reading it is this, and here's the doctrine that I tend to kind of hang out with. And now, if I know, if I'm aware of this, I can say there's actually other people who love Jesus, who view this differently. And I probably wouldn't go to a church where that was the rule for things, but there are other ways of viewing this and interpreting these. I just don't agree with that one. I tend to take this view. Even if I don't know that there's other views or know what they are, I can say, hey, this is how I read it. There's probably other ways. I'm not going to hold myself as the final authority on the matter, but it's just coming across with that posture, right? But it's not just a posture. I guess there is language. Subjective language is more important than I think we realize.
Right.
You know?
Which I mean, there's all these like weird kind of taking it back to the internet versus conversation. There's so many things that you don't have, like you lose out on the nuance of body language and things that might inform the reader of where you actually are or where you're,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. Like 70% of communication is not verbal.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest challenges I find people have. So in family therapy, that hurdle I was talking about before, that corner to turn, is this ability to, and that's where some structure or Rappaport method comes in, where really where there's a structure that says you're either in speaker mode or you're in listener mode, and if you're in listener mode, you're actually really encouraged to sit down and take notes because they've got instead of it just being a phrase, they're going to try to tell you both their perspective from both perspective or narrative and their feelings, and so they're trying to get the heart of the message across to you, what they really want you to hear. They're trying to get across, and and the only way we know that, okay, that's been accomplished, and then we can move to, okay, let's switch. Why don't you speak? Is by you regurgitating to them the heart, what they heard. And if you're just breezing by it and you're just saying, well, what you said was pretty much this, you know,
So it's not just cliff notes. It's really like some healthy reflection.
yeah.
That's
And
gonna come back on what they said.
so think about that, right? So let's say, even if it's about me, even if it's not about another issue, even if you're like, Phil, you're a really critical person, you know, who doesn't really care about my time, Phil, and that's how I feel about you, and that's my opinion. And I mean, those are the hardest ones, right? Those are the hardest ones because I'm like, whoa, like, no, I'm not. That's not what I'm not. That's
Has
not what I
someone
am.
said that to you before?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But but like, um, in that moment, I might think in my head, I'm like, how in God's name do you see me like that? Because
Yeah.
of this, and this, right? But but I think there really is the ability, provided you have enough emotional margin in the moment, you know, uh, to stop and say, okay, let me hear your heart. I want to treat you with sincerity right now. If this isn't just an insult, and you're upset and you feel this way and you're telling me this, you know, then maybe you're at a point where you're not saying it in the best way. Fine, but I want to know your heart. Okay. And so help me understand. Can and again, we've talked a little bit about the difference between being in what is this mode versus what the hell is this mode, right? It's
Yeah.
very different. Actively being curious versus like, what the hell is this? I'm not really curious. I just get it out. Like, how
Yeah.
can, you know? And so I want to stay in it. What is this mode? I'm in listener mode. I'm not looking to respond yet. I'm delaying my perspective. I have one, and it might be very, very different than yours, but that's part of differentiation. I'm going to hold that here. And I'm not even saying you might not be able to shift it. You might say something that makes me have to question this, and am I open to that, if it's valid? But I'm going to, listen to your heart and say, okay, so, wow, like, you feel like the last 3 times we've met, I don't know, like, I've had some sort of reason, okay, to cancel, to be late, to, you feel like, and I tend to just bring up the negative, and it happens. You're saying you feel like it happens a lot, uh, you know, like that's all I see or something, and you some examples of that. Now it's hard to get examples of somebody saying it like, well, almost in like a prove it because I don't believe the way, versus,
Yeah, that gets weird because
yep,
I think especially like in one-on-one relationships, there's so many nuanced things that you can't be like, here's the specific thing that you did and I wrote it down, and like,
yeah,
it just doesn't
no,
exist.
it's not. But if I can stay in curious mode, and it's a lot easier when it's not about me. I'm just saying that's the hardest one when it is about me. It's a different
Right.
genre of conversation, even, than if you're talking about, politics, even if I take it personally. And so I can sit here and I can say, okay, I still want to know. So that example, if what I'm looking for is to actually understand how you're seeing this, because this is affecting you and it's messing with how you are a relationship. And so I can at least get to a point where I can say, wow, okay, I would have not interpreted that way. And I'm not looking at it this way. And that's one of the dangers. A lot of people don't feel like they can listen without
Mm.
communicating silent agreement. And that's a big threat that stops them from sitting down, being patient, and hearing something, because that's where they stand. And if I want to know where you are coming from, even if I think it's wildly not true, then I should probably listen, because this is what's informing how you're acting with me, right? Um, so let me get in there and say, okay, and this is like, it is emotionally tough exercise, right? But to say,
Sure.
wow, so I guess if I was looking at it like that, where you're feeling like, you got canceled on the last few times, and I'm late a lot, and and you're feeling like, yeah, I remember that I did say that to you. You know, um, you played a good game, and all I commented on was like how, you could have been more active out there, and you were, whatever. And like, I can see why, like, that's not how I feel. That's not what I think. And I feel like there are other examples, but I'm not trying to go there right now. Like, I can understand why you might really feel like I'm critical of you. And we've moved away from the insult and making that the thing. and we've moved towards, like, I don't want, hey, like, I can see how you might see it that way, and I can understand if you're seeing it like that, that why you might feel like upset with me. And uh, do you feel like I understand what you're saying? And that's usually a turning point. And that now I can even take ownership. It's like, hey, I don't want to come off that way. I really, I feel differently, and if I want to, I might say it's going to be a lot easier for them if they feel heard. They feel like it landed what they said, their intention of their heart, right, landed, and that my interpretation fits, coincides with it. Then they're going to be much more relaxed. Even now, again, if it's about us, it'll be harder. If it's about something else, it'll be easier. But even if at that point I say, hey, so you feel like I understand, I saw it a little differently. Do you mind if I share with you how I saw it? It's like, I hear you, and that makes sense, but I wasn't even seeing it like that. I actually was seeing it like differently. um, they're going to be a lot more relaxed in hearing my opinion about that or anything else. What's really difficult is if I've just spent the time and labor, uh, and if I'm not, and if it, especially if it's harder for me to communicate, sharing with you my perception, being vulnerable, telling you how it affects me or how I feel, and you wanted to talk to me about your point, and I think that actually didn't even land, and you're not even you didn't understand what I'm saying, uh, and you want to move on. It's very hard not to get stuck there, where I feel like I've still got to hold on to that because I don't want that to be lost because that was valuable to me. And so you want to move on, and so every time you move on, I'm holding this, and then another thing that I'm thinking, and another thing that I'm feeling. Unless you can, it feels like it's slowing everything down and it's too structured. But if I just feel like you really registered and you understand what I'm saying, even if you disagree with it, I can move on with a lot less weight carrying me back.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know how to translate that to the internet, but I think that was just really good relationship insight, which is what a lot of this goes back to. And maybe, as I look at the clock and I think about like kind of wrapping up, I really wanted to spend some time talking about what it would look like to be a responsible, healthy Christian on the internet. Christian meaning, someone who believes in the work that Jesus has done for us. And
Say it again.
you know,
Sorry.
no, it's fine. I was just saying, I was thinking in the beginning when we were talking about this, like a good way to wrap up would be like, oh, here's a great way to like be a responsible Christian on the internet. But now I'm just almost feeling like, in light of everything that you said, and that you've kind of taught me about the way like those relationships dynamic work and our brain works and all that stuff, I almost feel more more convinced that the internet is a place that's going to just kind of harbor these things. So I feel like it's important. One of the things that I picked up when you were talking about what is it called when your ability to stay true to who you are?
A differentiation.
Differentiation.
But
I
connect.
think that I think it's really important for us as believers when we enter the space of the internet
Mm-hmm.
to remember that our differentiation should not be towards our belief in whether we want to wear a mask or not, or whether we want other people to wear them, or whether we want to defund the police, or whether we want to see a certain political party win the election. Our differentiation should always go back to who we are in Christ, right?
Okay, so
And
if I was just using the language of that, right, semantically, so just to use differentiation in its right context, I
yeah,
would be, yeah, like I have a stance on what defines me,
mm-hmm.
at the end of the day. On my political party is Jesus is King. You know, at the end of it,
Amen.
right? Like that, he's um, at the top of that, and I want, and that's my position. Um, and in light of that, so that's one position that's part of being differentiated, is the extent to which I can know what informs who I am. Why do I believe that? Why do I think that? Where does that even come from? Why am I standing in the place that I'm standing? Where do I take that viewpoint from? Did I just inherit that from my family, and that's how my family thinks, and therefore I think it? Or I've just subscribed to this political party a long time ago, and therefore whatever they say, I'm just in, or where is this statement coming from? Where so whether it's face masks or whether it's equality, race, whether no matter what it is, you know, whether it's this is who I am and why, or whether it's this is what I think we should do about this, that's my stance. Can I hold that stance, even if without either needing you to agree, dominating you, right, or manipulating you to agree with me? Can I, without melting into whatever it is you need me to be, so that I don't lose your friendship, get insulted, get back down, look a certain way in your eyes, can, even if you demonize me, that position, can I still love you?
Hmm.
And can I still love you and say, I can't lie about my position on this. This is where I stand, and I'm dishonest, or I don't know about that as much, and I'd like to learn more. But here's currently, in light of what I do know, this is why I'm standing like this. And I love you. I want to hear what your perspective is, but I'm not going to lie to you if I really don't agree with it.
Yeah.
And even if you're like, dude, don't talk to me, it's like, it's unfortunate. I don't want that. And I wish it wasn't that way, that I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm just trying to be honest.
Yeah. Um, that's good advice. I don't know what to say. That's great advice, to kind of be true to. I guess what I'm just like, when I hear you say that, the biggest thing that I think in my head is like, it's so important for us to, as we're being understanding. I think one of the main motivators for us to be understanding, to listen, is that, especially in the internet space, uh, people, if they know us as Christians,
Yeah.
regardless of what we believe, what we say is going to reflect that. And I think it's important that, um, kind of grace and peace would define us in those spaces. I think that's the most important thing, because it would be a shame if I were to sit here and spend an hour talking to you about my concern for internet relationships, and then go and blast off some really kind of like low EQ kind of posts about what I believe, and if everyone else believes something different, they're ridiculous. You know what I mean? I think it's just important for us to be really mindful about that.
I do too. And I think some of the people that probably are the most, it's going to be the people that are the most vocal. People call themselves Christians, right? And I'm not questioning that, but, and are the most vocal, or maybe even in this moment are feeling like a little bit like wrestling with whether to feel convicted or not about how they talk on the internet. I think, you're, you say, Jesus, he came in grace and truth, right? You might lean more on truth, than on grace, but both are very necessary, right? And so your version of truth, like your perspective, right? But you're
Sure.
saying sometimes you think it's maybe more clear than, more agreed upon than it is. I don't know, but like, um, but you might be saying, well, Jesus didn't compromise, the truth, or the apostles even, at times stood their ground, in confronting heresy, hold on, what time is it? Oh man, yeah, I've
It's
got a car.
341. Yeah.
Okay, just to finish the thought, okay.
Yeah.
But then, uh, I think you're right. There were times where, definitely Jesus said, he stood up and he was honest and he said the thing, and he made a lot of people uncomfortable, right? Um, but we do not see him act in a way that's removing the dignity from people. That's
Mm.
dehumanized. That's dehumanizing them. That's insult, or it gets insulting. He does not get insulting. I mean, I think there are moments where maybe you are brood of vipers. I don't know, but like,
Yeah.
but I mean, we gotta probably think that he's being very he's perfect in that. I don't know. Or technical. I don't know, but I think somehow this guy didn't stop coming from a place and motive of love at any time, and yet there were some sharp disagreements, and
Sure.
so how do we keep that engine in a place of love, in an engine that says, I mean, I don't want to wear the WWJD bracelet, but like, but there's that
Why
sense of,
not?
no, I would, but like, where, yeah, like, why is this coming out of me? And is that of Christ? Would that be coming out of Jesus, even if he was a Paul, or is
Hmm.
something coming at him like this? And why not? How can I get more of that, so that people see more of him?
Yeah. Cool, man. One thing just to wrap up, that popped in my head as you were talking was, Ryan Batesel, our lead pastor, always said to me when I first started working here, and I feel like he said it from the stage a number of times, but it's if we're going to offend people with anything, it's that we want to offend them with the gospel. We want to offend them with the truth that we know it to be, the truth of grace, the truth of peace, the truth of mercy, and those things. So if you're on the receiving end of some bad internet vibes, I will, I'm going to be praying for everyone for that. And I think that if you know that you have to take just a step away for your own mental health, please do. But if you feel, like Phil said, if you're one of those people that feels convicted and you feel like there's a lot of conflict in your internet life because of the way you're posting things, just consider, if you're offending people, what is it for? And what's the cost ultimately, So anyways, Phil, this was like a weird roundabout conversation about the internet and mental health.
You always telling me, and like I every time you do it, I want to interrupt you, but how like, Phil, it's almost like it's great to talk to me and like calling me smart and stuff, and the thing, and I think this is honestly obvious to people who have been watching how much of a privilege it is to talk with you, and that you're just even the way that you think about these things and the insights that you have in your heart, is I think really helpful in helping us to move, just to continue to move in our thinking about these things and to grow in these things. And so I'm very grateful. I've been very grateful. I've told you this, but it needs to be said more. Just how great of a facilitator of these conversations you are, and that I feel more than equally blessed.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I wish, well, I should say I hope, because I think we could probably safely maybe get into a room. I hope we can do this in person soon. And then just quick housekeeping. I know you got to jump off, but guys, if you need help finding a therapist or counselor, or you just need to talk, emergencenj.org/counseling. Also, R&R Tuesday nights is now live, meeting in Totowa, along with live meetings of summer sessions on Monday and Wednesday. So if you are feeling healthy, obviously no fever, any of that stuff, and you're looking to learn more, grow in the gospel, and connect with people, those are some spaces you can do it. And of course, always email me at matthew.novak@nj.org if you have any questions or thoughts about the show, upcoming posts, anything like that. Okay?
Redemption Recovery is both live and on Zoom.
Oh, live. Yeah. Redemption and Recovery is still on Zoom.
It's posted every week on Facebook on Tuesdays. So if you're looking to join us.
Yep. And it's the same link. So you can always go back to, if you want to bookmark it, you can go back and look at a past post. And that's it, man. Phil, I'll see you obviously I'll see you before this, but I'll see you in 4 weeks. Everyone here online. Also, if anybody didn't get the memo, Jumpsuit Thursdays. So get in on it, because
I'm in on it next time, dude. I'm on it.
All right, good. Cool. I'll see you, Phil. I'll see you, everybody at home. Thanks for hanging out with us. Later.